It says I'm live. Welcome,
Yay!
welcome, welcome. My name is Neil Thrussell, and I'm here with Spiritual Warriors Wisdom, and I'm really excited to have my friend Reverend Doug Craig here. Welcome, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing great, Neil. You know, every day is an adventure, and I'm here in my life to have adventure. And so some days it starts with just that day's adventure and something that leads into something you never ever thought it would.
Yeah. And so, Reverend Doug, I'm pretty sure that you went to sleep and laid your head on a pillow every night as a little boy and said, "By gosh, I want to be a minister." I can picture this. Is this am I full of poop or what?
Well, really, that's not how it works, eh? But
Oh,
in my younger days, I had a career from 14 to 30 that was checkered with incidences of crime and violence and drug addiction and alcohol abuse and gang activities and never envisioned to me that at one day I would be a minister. In fact, if you said something like that, or a professional Santa like I am, I would have said that you really need some professional help because, I mean, you're just out to lunch. Or I'd like to get some of that stuff you're on because it sounds like it's pretty good if you're getting that kind of a visual. So, give up what you think you're going to be because it usually doesn't work that way. However, if you open up to what you can be, holy, it could take you to a lot of different wonderful places. I remember the first time I went down to the center, then now Center for Spiritual Living, and it was the second Sunday in January 1980. And I remember I was just stunned by what I heard. And then the next week, my second time there, it's been 40 years now, the second Sunday, I'm sitting there and the voice spoke to me. That small, still voice within. And I'd had it a few times in my life. I didn't understand it. And it said there, "Doug, you're going to enjoy being a minister." I go, "What?" I couldn't believe it. And it said, I said, "How can I be a minister? I'm just coming through and getting through addictions with cocaine, some club and gang activities, and crime, and I got to go to trial in March, 2 months from now, and I'm up in Court of Queen's Bench, and I'm looking 2 to 5 years for trafficking." It didn't seem possible. And I just laughed. And then the voice, and I said, "What?" And the voice says, "Doug, you're going to enjoy being a minister." And I said, "Well, because I made a commitment to God that if I could get my life back, I would spend the rest of my life in service and helping people." Right? And I just said, "Whoa, okay, but I don't know how to do this." And that's how it started, Neil.
so this voice you heard was not the voice that you found at the bottom of a bottle or a bottom of a pill or a snort through the nose. In your
Oh,
mind,
no.
what was the difference in the voice to you? How did you know that it was the voice in your mind of God?
Neil, it's the same way Spirit has talked to me and instructed me and prompted me through my life. If I stay there and follow what I'm prompted or told to do, it is absolutely amazing. And I know that it wasn't me because I don't do that. I don't think that way.
Yeah.
There's a real good example I'd like to tell about faith and standing in the eye of the storm. One of my favorite stories. It happened in 2001 when I was with my buddy Tony Millette. We were teaching for the SATE up in Shenyang, China. We were teaching the opening classes of a semester. They were going to do the first year there and the second year in Calgary. But anyhow, Chinese people treated us really good. We had no problem whatsoever. But there we were, about 5 days on an 80-day sojourn away from home, and we're in a medium-sized Chinese city of 14.5 million people.
Just a little one.
Yeah. And there's long throngs of people on the streets, and we're going home after school one day, and we stopped at the corner to get the light. And boom, we were surrounded by a gang of ruffians. Now, there were 11 of them. And they formed a circle around us like that. And what I figure was a honcho or the tough guy got in the middle. Now, I'm a little bit bigger than Tony, so he squared off against me. Okay. So, as I said, I had quite an extensive experience in these matters in the past. So I had made a commitment in 1980 to nonviolence. Okay. That's hard to do sometimes when you don't know how to do anything else except use a little bit of that. But anyhow, I did. And so I'm there and I'm going, okay, plan B, Doug's plan. So I got the first three lined up and I know exactly what I'm going to do to him. It's 5.5 to 1. No problem. Done it before. That's Doug's plan. So I knew exactly what to do. So I remained calm and I said, okay, God, you're on. And I never got a message. I just got these prompts to do things. And so what I did at first is I slowly went down. So I was at direct eye level with this guy. And then I got the dirty on. And we were staring. It was a stare down. And then I slowly began to move towards him. It just there's nothing else in the whole world except me and him and that eye. And it seemed like it went on for hours. And slowly, and I got this far from his face, and I did something which was absolutely amazing. I went, and I snapped at him. I think I got him on the cheek. I tried for his nose. And honest to God, Neil, and I got the witness, all 11 of them ran like this. They all ran nattering. I don't know what they were saying, but they were freaked out. I scared the hell out of them. I think they thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But, and, may not be a big deal for anybody else. But when you're a guy like me that's been in those situations, and I got a plan, and you have to know that the spirit doesn't always give you a message. Sometimes you just got to trust and follow the prompts. Because if I had been told to do that by the voice, do you think I'd have done something like that? Absolutely not. Who would do something like that?
Yeah.
I know it had to be the spirit because I never would have done anything like that. Never. I've done a lot of stuff in my life, and I handled matters like that a lot of ways, but never like that. And by God, we got God, by the God's lead, we got away with nothing. And I just looked at my buddy and said, that turned out a bit better than I thought it was going to. True story.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So you see, that's how I knew that wasn't me. That was something different. And it saved my life more than once. I mean, literally saved my life, especially in my most, what I call, defining moment, which I usually don't talk about a lot. That was my defining moment, and that voice saved my life. That was the difference between me being here and me not being here. It was right down to that.
Yeah.
And it spoke to me, and that was it.
And in one way, sometimes we need to surrender to the divine powers, to God, to allow us to get through it. And as you had said, that if you would have thought it through or been told what to do, I know I would have gone, not a chance.
No, me neither. You forget that. But that's what it's about. You talk about surrender. When I first got into this, who, me? Surrender? You gotta be kidding. So I'm not doing that. And then, things started to crap hit the fan. And I remember one day I go, God, I need help. And then, I just surrendered. And you see, that's when you got to do. And surrender is, a lot of people, especially if you're macho and not like I was, it's maybe still am. Surrender is not a sign of weakness. You have to know that surrender is an absolute sign of strength, and you'll get the strength back from it, because it doesn't mean you're giving your power away to anything. You're just turning it over to the higher power within you, which has got a little bit more clarity and wisdom than that just human ego experience, you see. And so when you can draw on that, that really takes you into a different space, and it builds confidence. And that confidence allows one to be what I call in the eye of the storm during life, whether there's a storm out there or not. Out there is a storm. Okay. It could be the calmness or it could be a tumultuous storm. But if I could stay in the eye of the storm, that's where the calmness is. I am calm. I am centered. I am peaceful, and I am poised at all times and in all situations. And as one declares it and walks it, then one is actually demonstrating that one doesn't have faith in God, one has the faith of God. And that there's
Absolutely.
been a subtle difference between those two right since the New Testament when Jesus called out the disciples.
You know, for me, I I I always look at where I've grown and I've developed when I can stay in where when I feel that I've progressed. The storm can be going around me and through me, and I can be involved in it. And when I can stay calm, that to me is a sign of when I'm truly have grown. I may not always
Yeah,
I may not always respond, and maybe I react negatively, but it's how much I've my past I may have done this, but today I'm doing this, so I know that I am evolving and have evolved because it's the storms. Most I discovered most people can be happy when they're happy. It's when it hits the fan is when the lessons really start.
yeah. Well, you see, one of the things, the storms are there in life, eh? And so, what I look at it when the storm comes is I go through this thing to remind myself not all storms come to disrupt my life, some come to clear my path.
Yes.
Okay. And so it's really interesting and it's really important to notice the difference because the ones that are there disrupting your life, then you have to take control over your inner world of mind and emotion and maintain the status quo. However, if one comes to clear your path, then you have to be willing to step right into it and go with it because it's clearing the way. And you don't want to get caught in the backdraft. You want to be right up at the front, breaking ground.
Absolutely. And you alluded to this checkered board past and your nefarious history in the back. But both of us know that that checkered board and nefarious path led you to be the person you are.
Correct. And a lot of people don't talk about their past. My family, my kids, my grandkids, they all know about that. And believe me, it's tacky. The tacky enough. We don't talk about all of it, but the tacky enough stuff. Now, I had all of that time and I had to find a way to make some sense and find value from that. So a lot of the times, me and my buddy Jim, we would tour around talking to kids and high school, junior high schools, different types of groups that were kids that got in trouble with the law and they have to go to this group and take the course. We'd be involved with that, and never once did we ever tell the kids what to do because we never tell people what to do. We just told them what can happen to them if they go down a certain path because we knew. Okay. So we draw upon my past
Hey, this is not good. We're drawing upon Reverend Doug's path, and now we appeared to have lost him. Okay, so he will get back on really quickly here. Most likely, he's just there's a storm where I'm in Calgary and Reverend Doug's in West Calgary, and there's probably just some electrical interference going on. But he is it's wonderful to actually connect. Okay, let's go. Let's add him back in.
that. Yeah. I don't know what happened, but every now and again, my computer does that, my Wi Fi. for some particular reason, and it gets quite frustrating. Oh well, I always say when stuff like that happens, Neil, what we got to do is we got to learn to go with the flow.
Absolutely.
But I
Yeah.
always tell people you got to check which flow you're in, because both the river and the sewer flow.
Yep. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
And
where
one
was I?
thing.
Where was I leaving off over that last time we were talking about? Oh yeah, the background and using my background to assist people. So when I work with a family with drug addiction and drug alcohol problems, there's no games. Okay. The one thing that addicts are a lot, they're very intelligent people, a lot of them, man. They know how to manipulate and control. But
Yeah.
you can't do that to somebody that's been there and's got a coffee cup, t-shirt, pencil, and is writing a book on it.
Yeah.
So I'm very effective and efficient at the work I do, because I go right for it, and I'm kind of an in your face guy. I'm kind, considerate, compassionate, empathetic, understanding, and I care a lot, but I don't do BS. And I'm not talking about belief system.
Yep. Absolutely. And
Yeah,
as and the name of the show is A Spiritual Warrior's Wisdom, and that's one of the root fundamental characteristics of a spiritual warrior. The warrior knows the battles he can win, and he knows when to draw the line, that there is no crossing this line.
that's
And
right.
you are loving, compassionate, and you are tactful, but there is no crossing this
That's
line.
correct. Yeah, you got to do that. And you know, call boundaries and limits. And not only is it for you, it's for me and for me to maintain my status quo. But the idea, I have always considered myself a spiritual warrior. And some people say, well, why a warrior? That's really harsh. Well, I say that we're all on that journey and we're all spiritual warriors. And where we wage our tumultuous outpicturing is when we confront ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. And so you got two selves. You got that self that's by this very nature likes to maintain control and protect the status quo. Good, bad, different, or ugly, at least it knows that and knows what to expect. Just like a lot of times I've researched women being abused will be abused 30 times before they leave, because being in the abusive situation is more familiar than the unknown. So we got that part, that self that's trying to defend its ground and protect that. That's why it's tough getting rid of bad habits, even though it's
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
Then you got that other part of self, okay? Now that's that spiritual self that's a part of us, and the very nature in us and the entire universe, spirit is always growing, evolving, and changing and moving forward. It's never static. So we've always got that part of us trying to pull us out of that place that the other part is trying to protect. So a result of this is we could get into a rut, depression, or extreme cases of complacency. But when we begin to challenge ourselves, when we begin to step outside of this comfort zone that we've created, that's when we are waging a war with ourselves. Okay. And we're doing it to go over to the other side. We're changing sides. We're, instead of protecting and maintaining the status quo and keeping us in our misery and getting to be right about it, we're now going to step outside of that and risk and see what that brings. So you got this kid that grew up as a young mountain man in the Canadian Rockies in an isolated community of 700 people, who, once he got a car when he was 16, eventually turned into a hardcore, big time city guy doing bad stuff. Okay. They don't relate. However, that's how it evolved. And I consciously went to war with myself to be able to confront myself, to say, this isn't acceptable anymore. I want to change. And I had no clue how to do it. I knew how to run my life from the time I was 14 to 30. After that, I had to learn all over again. And that was a challenge. It wasn't just going into a career or going into a job or going into a profession. I had to learn to sit down with somebody and negotiate with them and talk to them. And I had to learn compromise. And I had to learn that I couldn't have a chat out back with them to kind of sharpen up the point.
Yeah.
I had to not do that. And it was hard because I knew how to do that. And I knew how to make it work.
Yeah.
So shifting over to the other side was, oh my God, that was tough.
And you make a beautiful point, and it was unscripted that you talked about the greatest battle that a spiritual warrior ever faces is his own self.
That's right.
And that's the ultimate battle that a spiritual warrior needs and has to take on. And a
That's right.
spiritual warrior looks for who, part of the things is, who am I? Why am I here? What are my gifts? What are my talents? What am I bringing to the world? And surrendering to that quiet little voice.
I gotta tell you, it's amazing, you know. And I call this thing God. Okay, you call it whatever you want. You can call it ooblegook. It doesn't matter what the name of this presence. But I knew about God way years before I knew it was God. I remember one of the times I had my first real experience, and I was always going off because walk up the end of the street. I'm in the mountain. I'm climbing a mountain. Well, so I was always going off into the mountains in wintertime, all by myself, 2-3 clicks, 15, 20 below. I go up there. And one day I was walking along this ridge and I was going to go down this slope of snow, but something inside of me just grabbed me and said, no. And I'm going, whoa. It didn't say no with a voice. It said no with the feeling. And it was such a feeling. I'm going, wow. And I didn't go there. And I walked another 100 meters along the ridge. And then I decided to, but underneath the snow it had chinooked, and there was a sheet of hard ice with fresh snow on top. So when I stepped on it, whoosh, I was gone. Whoosh, right off the side, whoosh, 5-6 meters down into a snowbank, and nobody knew where I was, and there was nobody ever going to find me there. And I got up and, I was okay. So I walked back along there towards the place I come, and I got stopped dead in my tracks because where I was going to go is the same thing, only it was just over 100 meters down.
I don't think there's much bounce after 100 meters.
There is no bounce after that. I haven't tried it. I tried some pretty bizarre things in my day, but that's one thing I haven't tried. But it saved my life. And I knew that there was something special here in this place called Earth, but I didn't know what that was. But I always remembered it. Always, never forgot it. I could remember it today as clear as it was 55 years ago.
Incredible. So how did a nefarious past minister turn into Santa Claus?
Well, I was one of these guys that I don't give up when I got something on my mind. And it all started with relationships. Like, I got married in the 70s, 80s, got married, 90s, got married. Then I fixed the problem, which was me. I met this very special lady in 1999, and she had this vision of this guy. And she looked at me. She said, you look just like him, only he was a Santa Claus. And I had been an amateur Santa for 40 years, eh? So in 2003, I grew the beard out. It looked good. I still had the Bruce Willis look on the head there, the short hair, and because I had that rugged mountain man look all that time. Okay, well, that kind of suits my personality anyhow. And so I tried it and liked it, but I wasn't ready. 2004, shaved it off. And about 6-7 years ago, it was time. So I grew the beard, got the hair, went to Santa school, and started doing it. And this last year was the most successful season, 152 hours, over 10,000 kids in 30 days, loved every minute of it. And, Mrs. Claus, that's my wife, she didn't know she was going to do that, neither did I, but she just evolved into it. And when we go do Santa, and what we did this year is we took it to the next level. Okay, before we would do what we call our prayer treatment to set the tone. This year we took it to another level. What we did was we did a meditation. Okay, so her and I would sit down every day to go into our Santa stuff, and we do a meditation, and we would get calm and peaceful. And then our prayer treatment, I would go, we are open and receptive channels of the divine spirit and energy of good and God. And we draw through us, to us, and express by means of us the collective consciousness and the highest and best of Santa and Mrs. Claus in the minds of the hearts of the children, the parents, and the grandparents. And we just allowed that to flow through us and personify it our own unique way. And then people keep going on. How did you know to say that? How come you could do that? How do you do that? I said, well, it's really hard to explain, because I feel that when I do that and I step into the experience, I'm not Doug. I am Santa. People say, oh, you enjoy playing Santa? Be real clear. I am not playing. I am Santa. And I take that role. I take that position, and people feel that energy. And they say, well, after 10,000 kids, how could you keep doing that? How do you do that? Because I say, I look at every kid and every parent as though they're the first family of the day. And I treat everyone as though they're the first. Might have had 500 that day, but everyone is the first. Somebody said, that's easy to say. I said, you're right, it's easy to say. Try it. But you work at it, And the idea is, people say, oh, do you like doing it for the children? We don't do it for the children, Neil. We do it for the family, because our consciousness is wrapped around the family. And so we get to do little innuendo with the kids and that. And then I get paid exceptionally well because I'm good at what I do. But I get the $1 million payoffs when you get the little girl that's 10 years old, comes up and sits on your knee and looks in your eyes with a very somber look. And I said, dear, what would you like for Christmas? She said, Santa, all I want for Christmas is my mother to be rewarded for all the kind and loving work that she does for everybody. And I could get teared up right here now, man. I just teared right up, eh? Yeah. And I go to their mom, I waved her up because she had to hear it. Well, and her auntie cried, and then 3 people in line didn't even know what was going on, and they were all crying, So we had a real good one. But you cannot, Neil, you cannot buy that. No. I don't care how much money you got. You cannot buy that exquisite experience that interaction causes when you least expect it. And, with Santa, that happens for me all the time. Yes. That's one of the more intense ones, and I've had incredible experiences with that. And that's pretty interesting. And back when I first started doing it was back when I was in the other life. And it was a real neat experience to get dressed up with a beard and that and go to my kids' school and be the Santa. And all the other people that used to walk away from me were all up because they didn't know it was me. Eh? Yep. And it was really interesting putting on a different suit and having people treat you 100% differently. That was a real big eye-opener. And plus that back in the day, I wasn't the slim, trim mountain man going hiking guy that I am now. I average usually between 325 and 350. And then at my peak, I was 425. But when I was 325 and 350, I was big and I was rugged and strong. And I also was working out to be in the equivalent. Remember Stampede Wrestling with Stu Hart down here? Yeah. I was getting into that. Then something happened and I met my other friends, and so I chose that way to go and had a different journey.
You'd have done Stampede Wrestling. Maybe you could have been Dwayne Johnson, the white version of it.
No, I wasn't slated for that, Neil. I was slated to be a bad guy.
Oh, okay.
Because I was good at it, you know.
Yeah,
I'm actually a pretty nice guy. I was then too, but I was really good at being a bad guy too.
yeah.
Really good at it.
Well, you said something that triggered me, and what I hope people, as we go forward, that you said it was very important that we treat each interaction with a person as a new interaction.
Correct.
As we, every time we see each other, doesn't matter whether you just turned around in a circle and came back to that person. I, could we imagine our viewers if we treated every single interaction with a person as it was our first time? Because we always listen far more attentively when it's our first time and we're getting to know this person.
That's right.
I know for me personally, it's really important because in 2012, I had catastrophic memory loss to the point where I could hold a conversation with you, leave the room and come back and go, "So how are you, Reverend Doug? How's things?" Because I had completely forgotten what it was. And what it did for me was teach me to listen because I couldn't trust any of my past history that I had with you. You had a blank slate every
Yeah.
single time I had a conversation with you.
Well, that's a good thing in a way because you got an opportunity every time to do what you were just saying. But there's one other end to that. Let's go to the other end of that. And I want to share something that I found to be exceptionally valuable because I always worked a lot with people. And when somebody passes, it's the same old story. Oh, I wish I would have said this, or I wish I would have done that. Now, I developed something very early in my career, in my journey, which was called taking care of incompletes.
Yes.
So, in your relationships with the people that you care about and you love, and your closest relationship, you should leave any communication, anytime you finish a communication, you should leave making sure that there isn't anything that you would have wanted to say to them if they passed when they walked out the door. So, you know, a good example is when my mom passed. I went to see her before I went to our Sillamar conference, and you know, I gave her a big hug and a kiss as I walked out. I said to her, "Mom, I love you. Goodbye." And you know, I walked out, and I lived in town. All the rest of my siblings, four brothers, four other brothers and a sister, all lived in town. A bunch of them on the same street. Well, Mom passed while I was gone, and they all said the same thing. Geez, I wish I would have just gone to say hi, Mom. She lived just up the street and that. And you know what? I never said a word because you know what? There was nothing more for me to say. And I make an attempt to be conscious and aware of it. Lots of times I forget, but I get to do these type of things and remember stuff and make sure I take care of all my incompletes so that I'm complete if that happens and I don't need to carry anything that can be created in our human experience called guilt or whatever, right?
Yeah. Uh, I was part of a coaching program by Andrew Barber Starkey, and he has a every 3 months he has a process where you go through, you clean up your physical, mental, and spiritual space. You clean it up, you complete all those tasks, and any of the tolerations that that were hanging about, you fix those as well. And it's incredibly powerful when you clean it all up and you complete it, as you were saying.
Oh, yeah.
Incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And you know, one of the ways that a guy can, or a gal, anybody, got to watch it to be gender specific here. I don't do that. Okay. I'm trying to be politically correct. It's really tough when you really haven't been that politically correct most of your life. But where was I going to go with that?
Cleanups, completions, deletions.
Oh, yeah. Monitoring. Yeah. Thank you, Neil. And you just tweaked it right back for me. So, one of the ways that you can keep yourself focused, and remember, when I tell you this, it doesn't mean it's the way you want things to be. Okay, it's not the what you'd like, but this is a good way of managing day-to-day life, in particular when you got issues arising. And it is focusing on what I can do, what I can have, and what I am. Because if you're not and you've got conflict, what you're focusing on is what I can't do, what I can't have, and what I'm not. And you might say, well, it's not that simple. Actually, it is. It is quite that simple. Those are the two sides of that coin. And the neat thing when you flip the coin, it's random. However, you could flip the coin anytime one wants to any side. That's one of the most valuable tools that I've ever come across.
Excuse me. It's been a crazy. My long weekend was full of wonderful things, but it's catching up on me. But that's okay. So I know for me, and whatever the viewers choose the word, I use the word God as well. But when God speaks to me, unless I'm in paramount danger for me or immediate danger, he's God speaks to me very quietly and very softly. And so for me to hear God's words, God's wisdom, or understand, I need to go quiet. I need to shut the bleep up and let this mind frick end. What are some of the things that you do to go quiet?
I don't, because you don't need to. It's a tool that you can use, but it isn't necessary. What is really necessary, in my humble opinion, is to learn how Spirit speaks to us. So, Spirit speaks to us in a number of ways, and Spirit will give us little pieces of a puzzle. You know how sometimes when you look back on something, you reach a destination and you look back and all those little things start to make sense and how you got there?
Yes.
Even the things that caused conflict were really a valuable part of it. So what I learn when I work on is seeing those pieces before I get there to see how they're working and tying in to get a piece of it. So that's one way. Anytime I have a reaction, don't matter whether I'm right, wrong, or indifferent, I have a problem. There's unusual thoughts at unusual times. And then there's dreams that are lucid ways of communicating symbolically to us from the Spirit. And then there's that small, still voice. And then, like I told you, there's those prompts. Now, the real key to all of this is right. Remain calm, but not go into calmness. Remain calm during your life and trust that the Spirit is going to give you what you need when you need it. Now, for humans, that's not good enough because we like guarantees. That's not how it works. One must, in order to get to this place, Neil, and to work at, I say I've been working 40 years and I'm doing well now, but I'm still, not 100%. But in order to get to that place, one has to trust and work on the premise and always know that with the Spirit, you're on an as need to know basis.
But I
Whether it
always
be
need to know.
6 months before or whether like it was right there with
Yeah.
because you don't need to know till you need to know. But the problem in the conflict comes where we get impatient and all that inner turmoil is because we want to know ahead of time.
We want to know now.
Yes, and we do know now, but the now isn't the now we're talking about. You always get what you need when you need it if you're patient. Patience, patience, and patience. And work with gratitude, Neil. You remember what Plato said? A grateful mind is a great mind, which eventually attracts to itself great things. So we got to be grateful. And there's so many things to be grateful for. I remember one day sitting down and going, wow, am I ever grateful for this toilet paper? Now, when you're out in a 21-day mountaineering expedition where you spend 15 on snow and glaciers and ice, in June, mind you, you're fairly decent, and you're packing everything, and the one item that you did not pack because it's just extra weight that wasn't necessary, was toilet paper.
Yes.
So you got a group going 21 days with no toilet paper and no soap and towels and no shower and no cleaning and anything like that. You got to use the organic soap, but it was your day to cook. Other than that, people say, well, what did you do? I said, well, snow can be shaped up like a debit card and it goes cha-ching.
Yeah.
But when I got back and I got sitting down in the washroom and I'm looking at the roll of toilet paper, and I had this wave of gratitude that come over me that scared me because I thought, oh my God, that much gratitude for toilet paper. But we take so many things. That's the reason I use that extreme example. There are a lot of other things, but we take so many things for granted and we feel so bad about the things that we don't have instead of looking and being grateful for the things that we do have. And
Here,
it's
here.
just like with this COVID thing, there's a lot of terrible things that are happening, but there's a lot of marvelous ways. Humanity has stepped up and become creative and helpful in ways we never dreamed could be possible.
Yep.
And we never dreamed people would step up to the plate and do that. And it's a paradigm shift because we'll never go back to the way it was before. That's the entire planet,
Yep.
which is good. We need a little bit of shake and bake.
Yep. It's like the COVID experience for many people has been a terrible experience.
Yeah.
For me, I'm choosing to go and from a place of how am I coming out of this from a learning experience? What am I moving forward with? Because I can woe is me, or I can choose to accept that I can learn from this, I can grow from this, and I can expand. And even just in my capacity to love during all this. So I am choosing that this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me.
Well, and it doesn't matter how you choose, you're in it. So it's a matter of riding the wave. And it doesn't matter whether it's this. Neil, if there wasn't any COVID going on, it's regular life and it's the same thing. Some people are having a horrible time and some people are doing great and some people are coming up with great creative ways to help people.
Yes.
So, it's the same. It's just more accentuated during this particular era of our time. I was walking through the mall one day when it was just hitting, and this lady, older lady, younger than me, said, "This other people I walked by listening, oh, I wish I would have died so I didn't have to live to see this."
Ooh.
And I go, thank God I'm alive to live to see this because I could chalk it up as an experience. I mean, how many pandemics we had? And there's something that I got to tell you is really interesting about perspective. My 23-year-old grandson, we're going out doing our thing, and Casey says to me, Papa, he said, never in recorded history has something like this ever happened before. And I said, Casey, I want to tell you a story about my grandfather. That's your great-great-grandfather. When he was a little boy growing up, there was a diphtheria pandemic, killed a lot of people, including his older brother, who was 2 years older than him.
Yep.
When your grandfather was 15, he asked his father if he could get his dead brother's birth certificate to register in the Canadian Army, and he was sent over to France and Europe when he was 15 years old. He was a machine gunner.
Yep.
15. Doing that, and then eventually he was shot 3 times in battle, sent over to recoup, and then discharged, met my grandmother, come back just in time to get set up to go through the Spanish flu pandemic.
Yep.
So, yes, this is neat, but your great-great-grandfather went through a diphtheria pandemic, World War I as a soldier, being wounded and shot, mustard gas attacks, and the Spanish flu pandemic, not to mention he topped it off with the Great Depression.
Yes.
So, and we're whining about this.
and I'm for society. It's because of their experience. We've not had
Correct.
great adversary.
That's right.
Even the Iraqi war, the Iran, it's been limited focus because the average person in their home didn't feel the effect.
And you know, I like what you just said there. We never had this great of an adversary. And let me just take it and turn it in. Because as a collective consciousness, as humanity, we inside have never had a greater adversary because we have no frame of reference for this. So we're all battling our old belief systems and our old ideas and developing new ways to relate to this. And so again, we go to battle with the former self trying to maintain the status quo and the other self being pulled forward into the experience. No different.
Absolutely. It's crazy. So we're running out of time here. So is there anything that you would like to leave our viewers with for a last wrap up? Just some words of wisdom, a treatment. What is it you would like to leave our viewers and listeners with?
Well, you know, Neil, one of the most important things, and that I work with consciously every day. Okay. And my honey, we work with it, and she's been working with this since she's been with me, and this has been my favorite tool since I really developed it. And I call it the 3 no's. So there's no justifying. If I feel this way, I feel this way. I don't have to justify it. I might not know how to, but it's valid. If you feel a way, it's valid. It doesn't mean that's my intention or anything else like that. But if you have a feeling, it's valid. And you don't need to justify that. No justify.
Yes.
Number 2, no blaming. No blaming at all. Anytime you point the finger, you might as well take it and point it right back here because there's no blaming. Anytime you get into blame, you give away your personal power. One day at Unity there, I remember a lady come up to me after the service and she said, you know, when you said that, you hurt my feelings.
Oh my.
And I says, dear, please, don't give me that much power in your life. I don't want it.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? Well, you said I hurt your feelings. You could have said, when you said that, I chose to be hurt
Yes.
and take back your personal power. So don't blame anybody. It might not be your fault, but you showed up for the experience. Like somebody said, I got in a car accident. It wasn't my fault, but I showed up for it though. Okay. No blaming, no justifying. And here's the biggest one of all. No attachment to outcomes.
But.
That's what I tell people. You got to get off your butts.
Yeah.
No attachment to outcomes. You can have expectation, but no attachment to it for a lot of reasons. And one of them, attachment could be a limitation.
Absolutely.
I wanted to go to Hawaii, but I needed money.
Are you saying your good looks wouldn't get you there?
No. So then I got for 5 years of not going. I took that caveat off and said, I just want to go to Hawaii because I thought maybe I'd win a trip or somebody might take me.
Yes.
Well, I went twice and none of that happened. Both
Yeah.
times I got a call and they paid me to go to Hawaii. Get out. Yeah, twice.
Excellent.
So that's the most important thing. If you could get a handle and wrap around those 3 things, then you are empowering yourself and it takes away some of the impact that we tend to give to the conditions and circumstances in our life. So with that, I'll just close with what we call a spiritual mind treatment. So I just invite everyone to be calm, cool, and collective and go within and know that there is one eternal life that is forever giving of itself, and that is God's life. That is my life, your life, right here and right now. And I know individually and collectively that we share this experience that we call life, and it is the same experience, but it's given us to us so that we get to personify this life in our own unique and special way. So I know for myself, as I know for each one here that is listening and will listen, that we're whole, perfect, and complete in all ways and at all times, and that that divine healing presence of good in God is in us, moves through us, expresses by means of us, and is us in our own unique and special way. And that at that depth of our level, our soul knows where we need to go and what we need to do to experience peace, prosperity, fulfillment, and happiness. And that divine right action takes place in our life. And there's a gradual, orderly, sequential unfoldment into form of the highest and best that we are. So, with this spoken and this accepted, we now give thanks and we release it, knowing that it is spoken and accepted. It is now so, and so it is.
So it is. So thank you, Reverend Doug, for being part of this show. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.